Stop scrolling and listen to today's Arcturian Council message. Arcturian Council, you have only 9 minutes left. They released a major financial blessing that is time-sensitive, energetically locked, and only accessible to those who are aware enough to stay present right now. This is your shock to the system, and it is meant to be. You are not here by accident, and the fact that your eyes landed on these words at this exact moment is already evidence that something has shifted in your energetic timeline. The Arcturian Council does not whisper when urgency is required. They interrupt. They disrupt. They override the noise of endless scrolling because a financial frequency has been released that does not wait for hesitation. This is not about luck, gambling, or wishful thinking. This is about alignment, readiness, and the courage to recognize a door opening where there used to be a wall. Many will feel resistance reading this, a sudden urge to dismiss or scroll away. That resistance is the signal. It means your old conditioning is being challenged. The Council states clearly, this blessing activates only through conscious acknowledgement. If you ignore it, the window closes and recalibrates for someone else. You are being asked to choose awareness over comfort right now, because comfort keeps people poor in money, in spirit, and in possibility. This message carries a charge, and your nervous system can feel it even if your mind is confused. That confusion is the mind losing control. Let it. Type I am present to claim this message. The Arcturian Council speaks now of timing, and timing is everything. There are cycles of abundance that move through humanity like tides, and most people only notice the aftermath, never the wave itself. What has just been released is not random. It is synchronized with planetary shifts, solar codes, and collective exhaustion. Humanity has been drained, financially and emotionally, and the Council intervenes when imbalance becomes unsustainable. This blessing is not a handout, it is a correction. It realigns energy that has been stuck, blocked, or siphoned away through fear-based systems. You may have felt lately that no matter how hard you try, progress feels delayed or invisible. That sensation was not failure, it was containment. The container has now cracked. But here is the shock, not everyone benefits equally. Those who cling to old survival identities will feel chaos. Those who are willing to release scarcity thinking will feel relief, opportunity, and unexpected openings. This is why the Council insists on awareness. Money follows clarity, not desperation. If you feel both nervous and hopeful right now, that is the exact frequency required. Type I release scarcity to anchor this shift. Now listen carefully, because this is where many people misunderstand the message and miss the blessing entirely. The Arcturian Council is not promising instant wealth in the way the ego fantasizes. They are activating pathways, routes that were previously invisible or inaccessible. These pathways may arrive as ideas, conversations, invitations, sudden endings, or uncomfortable truths. Yes, some doors will close abruptly, and that can feel frightening. But closures are not punishments, they are reallocations of energy. The Council warns that clinging to what is familiar will block the new flow completely. This is the shocking part. Stability can be the enemy of abundance if that stability is built on limitation. You may be guided to leave something you once begged to have. That is not loss, that is graduation. Financial blessing follows those who trust movement over stagnation. If you've been asking, why now, the answer is simple: because you are finally ready to let go of who you thought you had to be to survive. Type I choose expansion to claim this activation. The Council now addresses the fear that rises when money is mentioned, because money has been weaponized against human consciousness for generations. Shame, guilt, and unworthiness have been programmed into the collective, making abundance feel suspicious or immoral. This blessing dissolves that distortion. The shock here is this: You do not have to suffer to be worthy. Struggle is not a spiritual requirement, it is a learned pattern. The Arcturians state that ease is the true indicator of alignment. If you believe abundance must hurt, you will unconsciously sabotage it every time it approaches. This message is interrupting that cycle. You may feel emotional as you read this: anger, grief, or relief. That is old programming leaving your body. Let it move. Do not analyze it. The financial flow coming toward you responds to self-trust, not self-punishment. When you stop proving your worth through exhaustion, resources respond differently. This is a recalibration of value, both internal and external. Type "I am worthy of ease" to seal this realization. Here is where the message becomes deeply personal. The Arcturian Council says that many reading this have been carrying ancestral financial trauma patterns of loss, debt, or instability passed down silently. You may have thought those stories were just history, but energetically, they have been active contracts. This blessing interrupts those contracts. The shock is that you were never meant to fix the past, you were meant to end it. By choosing differently now, you collapse timelines of repetition. You might notice sudden clarity around spending, earning, or boundaries with others. You may feel less guilt saying no, less fear asking for more. These are not personality changes, they are energetic upgrades. The Council emphasizes that abundance stabilizes when you stop negotiating against yourself. If you constantly lower your standards to avoid conflict, money mirrors that behavior. Respect invites resources. This message is not gentle because the moment is not gentle. It is decisive. Type "I break old cycles" to claim this liberation. The Council now speaks of attention, because attention is currency in higher dimensions. Where you place your focus determines what grows, multiplies, and returns. Many people unknowingly invest their attention into fear-based narratives, news, comparison, and imagined worst-case scenarios. This drains financial momentum before it even forms. The blessing released requires a redirection of focus, not blind positivity, but deliberate awareness. The shock here is realizing how powerful you already are. Your thoughts are not passive, they are instructions. If you constantly rehearse lack, the universe follows orders precisely. This message is an interruption of that rehearsal. You are being reminded that you can choose differently moment by moment. Not perfectly intentionally. When you notice yourself spiraling, that awareness alone weakens the old pattern. Money responds to presence because presence is power. Type "I focus intentionally" to align with this frequency. Now the Arcturian Council delivers a warning, and warnings are acts of respect. This blessing cannot coexist with dishonesty, especially self-deception. If you pretend to want abundance while secretly fearing responsibility, visibility, or change, the flow will stall. The shock is this: abundance amplifies who you already are. It does not fix avoidance, it exposes it. This is why the Council urges inner alignment before outer gain. You may be called to clean up commitments, speak truths you've delayed, or face habits that leak energy. This is not punishment, it is preparation. When your inner world becomes congruent, external resources stabilize naturally. You don't chase money, you become a safe container for it. Type "I choose integrity" to claim this readiness. The Council now reminds you that comparison is one of the most efficient ways to block your own blessings. When you measure your journey against someone else's timeline, you distort your frequency. This blessing is customized, it responds to your unique path, not someone else's highlight reel. The shock is realizing that jealousy is not a moral failure, it is a signal pointing to unclaimed desire. Instead of suppressing it, translate it. Ask what it reveals about what you want. Then claim it consciously. The Arcturians emphasize that envy dissolves when direction becomes clear. Your financial path may look unconventional, nonlinear, or misunderstood by others. That does not make it wrong. It makes it yours. Type "I trust my path" to affirm this alignment. Here, the message deepens. The council states that receiving is a skill, not a passive event. Many people know how to work, strive, and endure but freeze when something is offered freely. This blessing challenges that pattern. You may feel uncomfortable with ease at first. That discomfort is not danger, it is unfamiliarity. The shock is understanding that receiving requires courage. It means letting go of control, allowing support, and trusting that you don't have to earn every breath. As you practice receiving in small ways, compliments, rest, help you expand your capacity for larger flows. Money follows the same principle. Type "I allow myself to receive" to strengthen this channel. This is not a one-time reading, it is an ongoing attunement. Synchronicities may increase. Opportunities may appear subtly at first. Pay attention. The blessing unfolds through participation, not passive belief. The shock is realizing that your life can respond quickly once resistance drops. You are not late. You are precisely on time for this version of yourself. Stay present, stay honest, and stay responsive. The frequency has been released. The rest is choice. Type "I stay aware" to continue claiming this message. The Arcturian Council now shifts the transmission into a deeper layer, and this is where many feel an internal jolt of recognition. They say the financial blessing released is not only about currency, it is about energy circulation. Money is simply the most visible symbol of flow in your current reality. If flow has been blocked in relationships, creativity, health, or self-expression, it will have mirrored itself financially. This blessing begins by restoring circulation in places you may have emotionally numbed yourself. You might suddenly feel inspired after months of emptiness, or restless where you once felt resigned. This restlessness is not dissatisfaction, it is life force returning. The shock here is realizing how much of yourself you had quietly shut down to survive. Survival mode narrows perception, and narrowed perception limits opportunity. The council states that as sensation returns, so does access. You may feel overwhelmed at first. This is normal when aliveness comes back online. Do not suppress it. Let it reorganize you. Abundance does not arrive to those who are numb, it arrives to those who are awake and responsive. Your sensitivity is not weakness, it is the antenna through which resources find you. Type "I allow flow" to claim this recalibration. Now comes a message that may feel confronting, and it is meant to. The Arcturian Council says that many people delay abundance because they are unconsciously loyal to struggle identities. These identities feel safe because they are familiar, even when they are painful. You may have built a sense of self around being the one who gets by, the one who sacrifices, the one who never quite catches a break. The shock is realizing that letting go of struggle can feel like losing yourself. Who are you without the story of hardship? This blessing asks you to answer that question through experience, not analysis. You are not betraying your past by choosing better, you are honoring it by refusing to repeat it. The council emphasizes that identity shifts often feel like grief before they feel like freedom. Allow that grief. It is the old self dissolving. Financial ease requires psychological permission, and permission is an act of courage. Type "I release struggle identity" to open this door. The transmission now addresses patience, but not in the way you've been taught. The Arcturian Council says patience is not passive waiting, it is active trust combined with consistent alignment. This blessing unfolds in stages, each one preparing you for the next. If everything arrived at once, your nervous system might reject it. The shock here is understanding that delays are often protection, not denial. You are being strengthened, stabilized, and attuned so the flow can remain instead of flash and disappear. Pay attention to small confirmations, unexpected refunds, opportunities, ideas, or support showing up without strain. These are not coincidences, they are calibrations. Gratitude during these moments accelerates the process, not because you must be polite, but because recognition stabilizes energy. What you notice stays. What you dismiss fades. The council reminds you that trust grows through evidence, and evidence accumulates when you stay engaged. Type I trust the unfolding to reinforce this alignment. Here, the Arcturian Council introduces a powerful reorientation: leadership. They say abundance follows those willing to lead themselves first. Leadership does not mean control, it means responsibility for your inner state, choices, and direction. The shock is realizing how often you may have outsourced your power waiting for permission, validation, or perfect conditions. This blessing responds to self-direction. When you choose clarity over confusion, honesty over avoidance, movement over paralysis, the universe responds with resources. Leadership energy is grounded, not frantic. It does not beg, it decides. You may feel prompted to set boundaries, restructure your time, or invest in yourself in ways that feel bold. Bold does not mean reckless, it means aligned with truth. The council states clearly, when you take yourself seriously, life does too. Type I lead myself to anchor this frequency. The Arcturian Council asks you to remember something essential: this blessing is relational. It interacts with you. The more consciously you engage with it, the more clearly it responds. Speak to it, write about it, notice how it moves through your days. This is not superstition, it is co-creation. The shock is realizing that abundance is not separate from you, it is responsive to your state of being. You are not chasing it. You are signaling readiness. Stay present in the coming hours and days. Notice impulses that feel calm but certain. Follow what feels expansive rather than what feels familiar. The frequency has been activated, and your participation sustains it. This is not the end of the message, it is the deepening. Type I am ready to receive more to continue claiming the transmission. The Arcturian Council now speaks about responsibility at a higher octave, and this is where the message becomes undeniably real. Responsibility here does not mean burden or pressure, it means ownership of your energetic output. The shock comes when you realize how often you may have blamed timing, people, systems, or circumstances for financial stagnation while quietly giving away your creative authority. This blessing responds when you reclaim that authority without bitterness. You are not being asked to deny external challenges, you are being asked to stop letting them define your inner state. The Council emphasizes that energy follows authorship. When you see yourself as the author of your responses, rather than the victim of events, your field stabilizes. Stability attracts opportunity because it signals reliability to the universe. You may notice that situations that once triggered anxiety now feel neutral or manageable. That neutrality is power. It frees energy that was previously locked in reaction. Financial expansion requires emotional bandwidth, and that bandwidth opens when you stop fighting what already happened and start choosing what happens next. Type I take energetic responsibility to claim this recalibration. The transmission now turns toward expectation, and this is a subtle but critical shift. The Arcturian Council explains that expectation is different from hope. Hope waits. Expectation prepares. When you expect alignment, you organize your life differently, you clear space, make plans, and remain alert. The shock is realizing how often you may have expected disappointment without consciously admitting it. Those expectations quietly shaped your outcomes. This blessing disrupts that pattern by inviting you to expect support without entitlement. Support does not always arrive in the form you imagine, but it always arrives in the form you can use. You may be guided to learn something new, reach out to someone unexpectedly, or take a step that feels premature. That is expectation in action. The council says that when expectation is grounded, not desperate, it becomes magnetic. Your posture toward life changes, and life responds accordingly. Type I expect alignment to tune into the signal. Now the Arcturian Council addresses rest, and this is where many feel resistance. Rest has been misinterpreted as laziness in productivity-driven cultures, but energetically, rest is integration. The shock here is understanding that without integration, abundance leaks. If you are constantly pushing, hustling, or forcing outcomes, your system cannot stabilize what comes in. This blessing invites strategic rest moments where you stop striving and allow your nervous system to reset. In those moments, insights surface naturally. Solutions appear without effort. The council states that some of the most profitable ideas emerge when pressure is released. If you feel guilt when resting, that guilt is a sign of old conditioning, not truth. Release it gently. Rest does not slow abundance, it allows it to land. Type I allow restorative rest to strengthen this foundation. The message now turns toward discernment, because not every opportunity is aligned just because it promises money. The Arcturian Council warns that desperation can disguise itself as opportunity. The shock is realizing that saying no to misaligned offers is an act of abundance, not fear. This blessing sharpens your discernment so that you recognize resonance instead of chasing appearances. You may feel less tempted by shortcuts and more drawn to sustainability. That shift protects your energy long term. The council emphasizes that true abundance feels calm, not frantic. It does not require you to betray your values or overextend yourself. If something feels heavy, rushed, or manipulative, it is not part of this blessing. Trust your body's response, it is more accurate than overthinking. Type I trust my discernment to anchor this wisdom. The Arcturian Council offers a reminder that integration is ongoing. This is not a moment to consume information endlessly, it is a moment to embody what you've received. Notice how you speak about money, how you treat yourself, how you respond to small changes. These micro-choices compound quickly. The shock is realizing that transformation often feels ordinary while it's happening. You may not feel fireworks, but you will feel steadiness. That steadiness is the sign that the blessing is rooting itself into your reality. Stay attentive, stay honest, and stay responsive. The transmission continues through lived experience. Type I embody abundance to continue claiming the message. The Arcturian Council now draws attention to language, because language is one of the most underestimated creators of financial reality. The words you casually repeat become instructions to your subconscious, and your subconscious executes them without argument. The shock comes when you realize how often phrases like "it's hard," "money never stays," or "that's not realistic for me" have been spoken as facts rather than habits. This blessing responds to precision in language, not forced positivity. You are not being asked to lie to yourself, you are being asked to stop rehearsing limitations as if they were laws of nature. The Council suggests conscious recalibration, speaking in ways that allow possibility without pressure. Replace absolutes with openness. When you speak differently, your perception adjusts, and new options become visible. Financial flow follows perception. If you cannot see options, you cannot choose them. This shift may feel subtle, but it is foundational. Words shape focus, focus shapes decisions, and decisions shape outcomes. Type I speak abundance consciously to claim this refinement. The transmission now moves into embodiment, because understanding alone does not stabilize abundance, embodiment does. The Arcturian Council explains that embodiment means your actions, emotions, and beliefs are aligned rather than contradictory. The shock is recognizing how often people say they want abundance while physically bracing for disappointment. Tension in the body signals mistrust, and mistrust constricts flow. This blessing invites you to notice your posture toward life. Are you contracted or open-guarded or receptive? Even small physical adjustments, slower breathing, relaxed shoulders, grounded presence send signals of safety to your system. Safety allows expansion. Money moves toward environments where it can circulate without chaos. When your body feels safe, your decisions become clearer, less reactive, more strategic. This is not mystical, it is practical energetic coherence. Type I embody safety and openness to anchor this alignment. Now the Arcturian Council addresses momentum, because momentum is often misunderstood. Momentum is not frantic activity, it is consistent movement aligned with intention. The shock here is realizing that stopping to recalibrate does not break momentum, it preserves it. This blessing builds through small, repeated choices that reinforce self-trust. Each time you follow through on what you say you will do, you strengthen internal credibility. Internal credibility attracts external support. Opportunities appear when you are reliable with yourself. The Council emphasizes that abundance respects consistency more than intensity. You do not need dramatic leaps, you need steady direction. Over time, that steadiness compounds into tangible change. Watch how confidence grows quietly when you honor your own commitments. Type I build aligned momentum to claim this progression. The message now touches on community, because no abundance exists in isolation. The Arcturian Council states that aligned connections amplify financial flow, while misaligned connections drain it. The shock is realizing that some relationships may unconsciously reinforce scarcity through shared complaints, fear, or comparison. This blessing may prompt you to shift how you engage, not necessarily who you love, but how much influence certain voices have over your decisions. Seek resonance, not validation. Conversations that expand your perspective strengthen your field. Conversations that shrink possibility weaken it. This is not about superiority, it is about energetic hygiene. You are allowed to protect your vision. When your environment supports growth, resources circulate more freely. Type I choose supportive connections to claim this clarity. The Arcturian Council reminds you that trust is built through experience, not promises. Watch what unfolds rather than demanding proof upfront. The shock is understanding that proof often arrives after commitment, not before. This blessing asks for participation, curiosity, responsiveness, and presence. Stay aware of subtle shifts, improved confidence, clearer thinking, calmer decision-making. These are early indicators of structural change. Financial reality follows internal architecture. When your inner world becomes organized, the outer world mirrors it. You are not imagining this shift, you are stabilizing it. Remain engaged, not obsessed. Consistency, not compulsion, sustains flow. Type I trust and stay engaged to continue claiming the transmission. The Arcturian Council now turns your attention to choice, because choice is the hinge on which this entire blessing moves. The shock is realizing how often choices are made unconsciously, driven by habit rather than intention. You may think you are choosing based on logic, but beneath that logic are emotional patterns that quietly steer decisions toward familiarity instead of growth. This blessing brings those patterns into awareness without judgment. You may suddenly notice hesitation where there used to be automatic agreement, or curiosity where there used to be fear. These micro moments are where reality changes direction. The Council emphasizes that abundance does not demand perfection, it responds to conscious choice repeated over time. Each time you pause and choose alignment over impulse, you reinforce a new trajectory. This can feel uncomfortable at first, because your nervous system is learning a new rhythm. Stay with it. Discomfort here is not danger, it is adaptation. Type I choose consciously to claim this turning point. Now the message addresses forgiveness, and this is one of the most underestimated financial tools available to you. The Arcturian Council states that unresolved resentment toward others or yourself creates energetic debt. This debt does not punish, it weighs. The shock comes when you realize how much energy has been locked in replaying old mistakes, betrayals, or missed opportunities. This blessing invites release, not excuse. Forgiveness here means reclaiming your energy, not rewriting history. When you forgive yourself for what you didn't know then, you free capacity for what you can do now. Financial flow requires available energy. If it is trapped in the past, it cannot build the future. You may feel resistance to this idea, notice it without forcing resolution. Even willingness to forgive begins the process. Type I release the past to initiate this clearing. The Arcturian Council now speaks of intuition, because intuition is the navigation system of aligned abundance. The shock is realizing that intuition often speaks quietly, and many have trained themselves to ignore it in favor of overanalysis. This blessing sharpens intuitive signals by reducing internal noise. You may experience sudden clarity that feels calm rather than urgent. That calm is the indicator. Intuition does not rush, it knows. When you follow intuitive nudges consistently, trust builds, and trust compounds into confidence. Confidence attracts cooperation from people, circumstances, and systems. The Council reminds you that intuition strengthens through use, not doubt. Even small intuitive actions reinforce the signal. Type I trust my intuition to align with this guidance. Attention now turns to patience again, but from a higher perspective. The Arcturian Council explains that impatience often masks fear of missing out or fear of failure. The shock is recognizing that urgency is not always alignment, it can be anxiety in disguise. This blessing unfolds optimally when you act decisively without rushing outcomes. There is a difference between movement and pressure. Movement is responsive, pressure is reactive. As you learn to distinguish the two, your actions become cleaner and more effective. Results stabilize because they are not forced. The Council emphasizes that sustainable abundance feels steady, not volatile. If something demands constant stress to maintain, it is not part of this flow. Type I move without pressure to claim this balance. The Arcturian Council leaves you with a grounding truth: integration happens through living, not reading. The shock is understanding that transformation often looks subtle on the outside while it restructures everything within. Pay attention to how you handle small decisions, minor inconveniences, and everyday interactions. These are the training grounds for larger outcomes. The blessing embeds itself through consistency, honesty, and presence. You are not waiting for a breakthrough, you are embodying one. Stay awake to your choices, gentle with your process, and firm in your direction. The frequency remains available as long as you remain engaged. Type I integrate and continue to keep claiming the message. The Arcturian Council now brings forward a theme many overlook when speaking about abundance: emotional maturity. The shock comes when you realize that money responds not only to desire, but to how well you can emotionally regulate when things do not go your way. Many people want abundance, yet collapse internally at the first delay, misunderstanding, or redirection. This blessing strengthens emotional steadiness so that temporary obstacles no longer feel like threats. When your emotions stabilize, your perception widens. You begin to see options instead of problems, solutions instead of endings. The council explains that abundance prefers calm containers because calm allows continuity. Reactivity creates volatility, and volatility scatters energy. You may notice yourself responding differently to stress, less spiraling, more observation. That is not indifference, it is mastery. Emotional maturity does not suppress feelings, it processes them without letting them drive decisions. This internal shift quietly increases your capacity to hold success without self-sabotage. Type I respond with emotional clarity to anchor this upgrade. Now the transmission moves into self-respect, and this is where the message becomes unmistakably practical. The Arcturian Council states that self-respect is one of the strongest signals of abundance in any dimension. The shock is realizing how often people compromise themselves, overworking, undercharging, overgiving while hoping abundance will somehow compensate. This blessing reverses that pattern. When you respect your time, energy, and boundaries, life mirrors that respect back to you through resources. You may feel guided to renegotiate, decline, or restructure parts of your life that quietly drain you. This can feel uncomfortable, especially if you are used to being accommodating. But self-respect is not aggression, it is alignment. The council emphasizes that money flows toward clarity. When you are clear about your value, others respond accordingly. Type I honor my value to claim this stabilization. The council now addresses fear of visibility, because abundance often requires being seen in ways the ego resists. The shock is realizing that many financial ceilings are actually visibility ceilings. You may unconsciously hide your ideas, your talents, your needs because being seen once led to criticism or rejection. This blessing gently dismantles that fear. You may feel prompted to share more openly, speak more honestly, or step into roles that feel slightly exposed. Exposure does not mean danger, it means participation. The council reminds you that visibility aligned with authenticity attracts resonance, not attack. When you stop shrinking to stay safe, opportunities begin to find you instead of passing you by. Type I allow myself to be seen to align with this expansion. Attention now turns to discipline, but not the harsh kind you may associate with punishment. The Arcturian Council defines discipline as devotion to what matters. The shock is understanding that discipline grounded in self-respect feels supportive, not restrictive. This blessing strengthens your ability to follow through without force. You may notice improved consistency not because you push harder, but because resistance lessens. When your actions align with your values, discipline becomes natural. The council emphasizes that abundance grows where devotion is steady. Small, repeated actions compound faster than sporadic intensity. This is how structures are built that can hold long-term prosperity. Type I practice aligned discipline to anchor this growth. The Arcturian Council offers reassurance: you are not behind, broken, or missing something essential. The shock is realizing how much pressure you have carried unnecessarily, believing you had to catch up or prove yourself. This blessing dissolves that urgency and replaces it with grounded confidence. Confidence here is not bravado, it is quiet knowing. You may feel less need to explain yourself, justify your choices, or rush outcomes. That steadiness is magnetic. When urgency dissolves, precision emerges. When precision emerges, resources respond. Stay engaged with your inner state as attentively as you engage with external goals. This balance sustains the flow now activated. Type I move forward with grounded confidence to continue claiming the transmission. The Arcturian Council now introduces a concept that reshapes everything you think you know about effort. They say effort is not meant to feel like force. When it does, it signals misalignment. The shock comes when you realize how often you have mistaken exhaustion for progress. This blessing recalibrates your relationship with effort so that action feels purposeful instead of draining. You may notice a desire to simplify fewer tasks, clearer priorities, more impact. Simplification is not laziness, it is intelligence. When energy is no longer scattered, it concentrates, and concentrated energy produces results faster. The Council emphasizes that abundance responds to clarity more than quantity. Doing less, but doing it aligned, opens space for support to arrive. You are not meant to carry everything alone. When effort becomes clean and intentional, life meets you halfway. Type I act without force to claim this recalibration. Now the transmission moves into trust in the unknown, and this is where many feel a tightening in the chest. The Arcturian Council acknowledges this reaction and speaks directly to it. The shock is realizing that control often disguises itself as responsibility. This blessing asks you to loosen your grip just enough to allow surprise. Not chaos cooperation. When you try to control every outcome, you limit the intelligence of the universe to your current imagination. But there are solutions, opportunities, and connections you cannot yet conceive. Trust creates space for those unknown variables to enter. You may feel called to take a step without seeing the entire path. That is not recklessness, it is alignment with a larger field of intelligence. The Council reassures you, trust does not remove discernment, it enhances it. Type I trust beyond certainty to open this channel. The Council now addresses emotional honesty, because suppressed truth is one of the fastest ways to block flow. The shock is realizing how often you may have said I'm fine when something inside needed attention. This blessing restores circulation by inviting honest self-dialogue. You do not need to dramatize your feelings, you need to acknowledge them. When emotions are recognized, they complete their cycle and release. When ignored, they stagnate. Financial stagnation often mirrors emotional stagnation. As you allow yourself to feel without judgment, energy moves again. Decisions become clearer because they are no longer distorted by avoidance. The Council emphasizes that honesty with yourself creates trust within your system, and trust stabilizes abundance. Type I am honest with myself to claim this clearing. Now comes a powerful reframing around success. The Arcturian Council states that success is not an endpoint, it is a state of congruence. The shock is understanding that many chase external markers while feeling internally fragmented. This blessing realigns success with inner coherence. When your values, actions, and desires match, success becomes sustainable. You may find that certain goals no longer excite you, while others suddenly feel alive. This is not confusion, it is refinement. As your definition of success matures, your financial path becomes more precise. The Council reminds you that alignment reduces friction. Reduced friction allows momentum to build without burnout. Type I define success authentically to anchor this shift. As this segment completes, the Arcturian Council offers grounding. Nothing you are experiencing is random. Every realization, discomfort, and expansion is part of integration. The shock is recognizing that growth does not always feel like elevation, it often feels like reorganization. Be patient with the restructuring happening within you. Old strategies are dissolving because new capacities are forming. This blessing embeds itself through lived choice, not dramatic moments. Stay attentive to your inner signals, gentle with your pace, and firm in your intention. The frequency remains available as long as you remain present. Type I stay grounded and open to continue claiming the message. The Arcturian Council now speaks of resilience, not as endurance of suffering, but as flexibility of consciousness. The shock is realizing that many people confuse resilience with tolerating what is misaligned. True resilience is the capacity to adapt without hardening. This blessing strengthens your ability to remain open even when outcomes are uncertain. When you stop bracing for impact, your system conserves energy. Conserved energy becomes available for creation. You may notice that situations which once felt threatening now feel informational. You observe instead of collapse. This shift changes how money interacts with you. Financial flow prefers adaptability because adaptable systems recover, reorganize, and grow. Rigidity breaks under pressure, flexibility absorbs and redirects. The Council emphasizes that resilience is not about pushing through, but about responding intelligently. When you allow yourself to bend instead of resist, opportunities pass through instead of crashing into you. Type I remain flexible and resilient to claim this upgrade. The transmission now turns toward gratitude, but stripped of obligation or performance. The Arcturian Council clarifies that gratitude is not about pretending everything is perfect, it is about recognizing what is working without minimizing what is not. The shock is realizing how often gratitude has been used as a way to silence dissatisfaction. This blessing restores gratitude as a stabilizing force, not a suppressive one. When you acknowledge what supports you, skills, insights, timing, connections, you reinforce their presence. Recognition is reinforcement. At the same time, honest acknowledgement of what needs change keeps energy moving. This balance creates coherence. The Council notes that coherent systems attract resources because they communicate clearly. Gratitude here is awareness, not denial. Type I practice grounded gratitude to align with this frequency. Now the Arcturian Council addresses self-trust at its deepest level. The shock is realizing that many people trust external authorities more than their own lived experience. This blessing recalibrates that hierarchy. When you trust yourself, decisions become cleaner, recovery becomes faster, and confidence stabilizes. You no longer need constant reassurance because your inner reference point is reliable. Financial expansion depends heavily on self-trust. Without it, opportunities are second-guessed or missed entirely. The Council emphasizes that mistakes do not erode self-trust, avoidance does. When you act, learn, and adjust, trust strengthens. You become responsive instead of reactive. That responsiveness is magnetic. Type I trust myself fully to anchor this foundation. The message now turns toward simplicity again, but this time internally. The Arcturian Council states that overcomplication is often a defense mechanism. If things are complex enough, you never have to commit. The shock is realizing how much mental noise has delayed decisive action. This blessing clears unnecessary mental layers so that truth becomes obvious rather than debated. When your inner world simplifies, choices present themselves clearly. Clarity reduces hesitation. Reduced hesitation increases momentum. The Council explains that abundance flows toward decisiveness because decisiveness signals readiness. You do not need to know everything, you need to know enough to move. Type I choose clarity over complexity to claim this shift. As this segment closes, the Arcturian Council reminds you that integration is cumulative. Nothing here is meant to be rushed or forced. The shock is realizing that lasting change feels quieter than imagined. There may be fewer dramatic highs, but there will be more stability. Stability is what allows abundance to stay. Pay attention to how your baseline state changes: calmer mornings, clearer thoughts, steadier emotions. These are signs of structural alignment. Financial reality follows structure. Stay present with the process, responsive to guidance, and honest with yourself. The transmission continues through your choices. Type I integrate with patience and trust to continue claiming the message. The Arcturian Council now delivers the final recalibration around identity, because identity determines what you allow yourself to keep. The shock is realizing that many people subconsciously sabotage stability because chaos once felt familiar. This blessing stabilizes a new identity, one that is calm in receiving, grounded in having, and steady in growth. You may notice that drama loses its pull, that urgency no longer motivates you the way it once did. This is not boredom, it is regulation. A regulated system can hold more without overload. The Council emphasizes that abundance stays where it is welcomed without fear. If you no longer feel the need to prove, defend, or explain yourself, that is the sign of identity integration. You are becoming someone for whom abundance is normal, not extraordinary. Normalization is what allows continuity. Type I accept abundance as normal to anchor this identity. Now the transmission focuses on endings, because every beginning requires a completion. The shock is understanding that some chapters cannot be carried forward, no matter how much effort you invest. This blessing brings graceful closure to cycles that have already expired. You may feel a sense of finality around certain habits, goals, or relationships, not with anger, but with clarity. That clarity frees enormous energy. The Council explains that incomplete endings create energetic leaks. When you consciously close a chapter, you reclaim that energy and redirect it forward. This does not require confrontation or drama, it requires honesty. Allow yourself to acknowledge what no longer fits. Release it with respect. Space created through endings is where new structures form. Type I complete and release to claim this closure. The Arcturian Council now speaks directly to faith, not belief without evidence, but faith rooted in lived experience. The shock is realizing that faith grows after action, not before. This blessing strengthens your capacity to trust yourself in motion. Each aligned step reinforces evidence that you can navigate uncertainty. Over time, that evidence compounds into quiet certainty. You may no longer seek signs constantly because your own stability becomes the sign. The Council reminds you that faith is not passive optimism, it is engaged confidence. When you act from alignment and adjust with honesty, outcomes improve naturally. This is how trust becomes embodied rather than conceptual. Type I act with grounded faith to anchor this state. As the message approaches completion, the Arcturian Council emphasizes stewardship. Abundance is not only about receiving, it is about how you care for what arrives. The shock is realizing that stewardship begins before resources appear. How you manage your time, energy, attention, and commitments signals readiness. This blessing enhances your ability to organize, prioritize, and sustain. You may feel drawn to structure your days more intentionally or simplify obligations. This is not restriction, it is preparation. Well-held containers invite expansion. The Council states that stewardship is respect in action. When you demonstrate respect for what you already have, more flows naturally. Type I steward my resources wisely to claim this responsibility. Finally, the Arcturian Council closes the transmission with a reminder of sovereignty. You were never meant to be dependent on messages, signs, or external validation. This message was a catalyst, not a crutch. The shock is realizing that everything you need to continue is already active within you. Awareness, choice, alignment, and presence are now integrated. The blessing continues through your lived decisions, not through rereading these words. Stand in what you've received. Move forward without urgency, without doubt, and without apology. You are not waiting for abundance, you are participating in it. This is the completion of the message and the beginning of embodiment. Type I claim and live this truth to seal the transmission.